Would you like to talk about the flywheel they had on SmackDown?
If that's what you want to call it, and I just want to remind everyone, night one, everyone loved WWE. The feeling started to go away, but then I just started wondering how they're going to capture, how they're going to move forward with any of the excitement anyone had around everything at WrestleMania. And the episodes right before WrestleMania, remember what you were saying about them? About how it's just like, yeah, this feels like just like a filler episode right before WrestleMania. It seems like that pattern hasn't stopped.
Well, it seems like now they've got to the part in the story where they don't actually know where they're going from here. Or if they do, it's a place they don't particularly want to go, but somebody's making them. It opened with the WrestleMania package, highlights of the matches, and this is SmackDown for April 7th, and all of the recap, and I watched it just to hear Kool and the gang sing Hollywood Swingers again. Hey, hey, hey,
Hollywood Swingers. Swinging.
See, I'm hearing Kool at the very least, if not the entire gang, say Hollywood Swingers.
Which one's cool?
Well, whichever one you like the best.
You don't know which one cool is, do you?
He's the one in the middle.
Which one's cool and who are the gang? Do you know which one cool is from Kool and the Gang?
Kool is the one in the middle and the gang are all around him.
I want you to tell me what instrument Kool plays.
Well, now, strange as it may seem, these baseball players got strange names these days. You got who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
So you don't know.
Did you notice that there was no mention of Shane McMahon in the package?
You found the one thing to get me off Kool and the Gang, Shane McMahon. No, there was no mention of Shane McMahon in the package, no.
And they gave special treatment to Cody versus Roman that, was a more somber tone than Hollywood Swingers. I mean, it's a nice package. That's what she said. And then...
Marty Gorman used to swear that I believe in miracles was I believe in Milko. Even though Milko's not a word and it just doesn't make sense, that's what he heard. It's Hollywood swinging. I believe in Milko.
Is that kind of like thank you for Cuba?
That's exactly like that, yes.
So the first match on this program was Sheamus and Ridge and Butch, the Brawling Brutes, against Gunther and Kaiser Wilhelm and Marcel Marceau, Imperium. And as soon as I saw this, I wrote down they're going to beat one of Gunther's stooges. And they went 2 minutes and went to the break. And then they come back, and I was trying to fast forward to the part where Gunther would get in the ring with Sheamus because I don't want to see these other guys. And it seems like we're seeing this every week now, this interaction. And they had, once Gunther and Sheamus got into things, they had some great action. People were into it. The 10 beats of the Bowery brought the house down on poor old Gunther. And then Gunther and Sheamus both went down selling, and the other 4 jumped in and did everything they knew at 100 miles an hour. And then somehow Sheamus beat Marcel Marceau, as I predicted. So I love Gunther. He's one of my favorite wrestlers, but it's always, what's going to happen. They're going to do just enough, say they've had a match. They're going to go for a couple minutes to a break. They're going to come back, and one of the Stooges gets beat. And you see a little bit of who you wanted to see. Did you see anything else?
Man, this is one of those episodes they should have started with anything with the Bloodline. Just show them arriving in a car. Just anything. Yeah. They started with this, and I groaned, and I feel bad. I like Gunther. Sheamus just had a hell of a match, that 3-way match at Mania. I don't mind Pete Dunne in his role as Butch. I actually kind of like him as just like this little guy who acts crazy. I think he's all right as that. But I don't want to see these guys all mixed up together in a ring for a while.
Yeah. Well, speaking of all mixed up in a ring, so we got a package on Cody and Roman and Brock, what happened Monday night, which surprised many people. And then Paul and Solo were in the back, and the lady interviewer says, well, why did Brock do this? And Paul, of course, doesn't answer. Instead, he talks about Roman Reigns approaching 1,000 days, blah, blah, blah. But then Jey Uso comes in, and say, hey, guys, where's my brother Jimmy? Now Jay can't find Jimmy. Remember, for a few weeks, Jimmy couldn't find Jay. Seems like they're not as close as brothers should be. Anyway, so Paul tells Jay that Jimmy is off tonight so that Jay can handle the Sami Zayn problem. And he pumps Jay up, main event Jey Uso, the whole 9 yards. And as soon as Jay walks out, then Paul tells Solo, if he doesn't do it, you do it. So now we don't know what's going to go on here, but
I like Solo in this role, though. He's growing on me every week.
Well, so was that tumor, but we're not going to talk about that. But it seems like they're now trying to prolong some things that have been going on for a while now. Everybody seems, when we get to Owens and Zayn, which is coming up in a second, I'll illustrate further. Ricochet beat a Viking in minutes. Just boom, get him out of there. 150 pounds bigger. So Owens and Zayn are in the back, and Owens is leering at the tag team belts. And Owens' story is tonight, Sammy, you can settle this with Jay, and then we're done with the bloodline. And Sammy says, I can't shake the feeling I have to talk to Jay. And Kevin's like, well, why? I feel a sense of obligation. And Kevin said, you're crazy if you think Jay's going to talk to you. The interaction between them, now that they're back together, is something we haven't been seeing. It didn't seem natural. And they're friends. Are they telling a story they're not believing in anymore? Or do they know exactly where the story is going so they can really sink their teeth in it? Because I wasn't feeling that something is gone with this thing now. It's like more of this rather than I can't wait to see more of this. I can't explain it, but the energy of Owens and Zayn in this promo, did you see it, or are you hanging on it like you were, or are you like, okay, I'm thinking that this has gone stalled here. What do you think?
I think they needed to do something else with them this week because they really didn't do anything with them on Raw. But also, more importantly, this was the first week I was kind of like, Sammy, what are you doing? Like, I was on Owens' side.
Yeah.
Why? This makes no sense. Now you need to talk to him? That's the thing I didn't like. It made Sammy, for the first time in a while, seem naive, or I don't know. I didn't like...
Or maybe just it's not plausible that they would be saying these things, whereas before you kind of bought it.
As soon as it became Sammy has to seek out Jay before the match they're going to have on this episode to talk to him, I didn't have a good feeling, and I didn't like this.
All right, well, speaking of not having a good feeling, Raquel and Liv beat Shotzi and Natalya in about 2 minutes. And then, so we said, did we get no LA Knight in LA at WrestleMania? And so in this, they're in the back, Xavier Woods and Mosh Pit Jones and his girl, what's her name, are playing video games. And LA Knight walks into this room, and when you see him on the screen, he gets a pop from the audience out in the arena. But he's bitching about WrestleMania in Los Angeles, didn't get to see LA Knight, but they saw you playing video games, Woods. And Woods stands up and tells him off, and in response, LA Knight breaks Woods' video game and walks off, and that's it. Vince is back, ladies and gentlemen. We're breaking video games now. I thought this was fucking AEW.
Mosh Pit and Emma seem shocked by these turn of events.
Could there be any? It was like LA Knight is at the level of fucking Taka Michinoku 25 years ago or whatever.
You know what he did wrong? He got over before they were ready for him to.
Yeah, that may have been a problem.
And he's over. They got to do something with him. You know, we rant and rave about AEW dropping the ball.
They're going to get him back under.
Yeah,
they're going to do shit like this with people that are immaterial, and you see him very sparingly, and pretty soon people are going to get tired of wanting it and move on to something else. Speaking of moving on to something else, at 9 o'clock Eastern, Triple H in the ring. He didn't do it early like he did on Raw. He waited till the middle of the program. It was probably a better version of the Raw promo because it was shorter and he had more practice at it. But he put WrestleMania over in very flowery fashion. They set all the records. And one statement he made, Brian, help me with this. He said, we got almost 1 billion views on digital. Is digital, what does digital encompass, and how did they tabulate or figure that they got 1 billion views? Is that anywhere remotely correct, and where's the loophole?
Well, first of all, I don't know if he's talking about WrestleMania the 2 nights or WrestleMania week. I don't know what that quantifies, but views on digital could mean YouTube. It could mean Peacock, technically. It could mean WWE Network in other parts of the world. I mean, those are some examples.
Is there any way they got close to 1 billion views?
I haven't checked that number. No, I couldn't.
I think we need to put Kippelman on that. He's got an accounting background. He's absconded with funds in several different states.
No, he has not, and you know that isn't true. Come on, leave him alone.
Well, just because what the parole officer said. Nevertheless,
there is no parole officer.
No parole for Kippelman? I thought he was going to get out soon.
That's not what I said.
All right. Anyway, you said he's no parole for Kippelman.
No
there you
officer.
Heard it from Brian Last, ladies and gentlemen.
I said no parole officer.
But now Triple H says we look to the future. Are you ready? In a few weeks, it's time for the WWE Draft. Well, somebody shut the window. It's getting cold in here. What does it mean when the same people are on both shows all the time? Why do they have a draft? Think about how many people have been crossing over the last couple of months. Everybody on the Judgment Day is back and forth. Everybody in the Bloodline is back and forth. All of the baby faces interacting with same are back and forth. So what does it mean anymore that some guys are supposed to be on Raw and some guys are supposed to be on SmackDown when there's no rhyme or reason otherwise than whoever gets over and gets hot and people want to see, those are the ones on each of the programs? Riddle me that, Brian Last.
I can't tell you, other than obviously Fox and USA have different shows. They want their own stars on the shows, and I guess they are okay with crossover events. But this is something that fans look forward to, and quite frankly, this is something they need right now, some kind of shakeup of some sort, even though, like you pointed out, how big a shakeup is it if you could just hop from show to show?
A shakeup would be, hey, we got a bunch of brand new big stars coming in. Not a shakeup is, well, we're going to take the guys you're tired of on one program, put them over on the other one.
Well, I'm sure this is where we'll see maybe a Braun Breaker, because typically when they do the draft, that's when you get the surprise, NXT star popping in.
So, but the point is, draft or not, Triple H says this year's draft is going to change the game. And I guess that's possibly a pun on his persona, but unless they got something up their sleeve, are they going to draft Goldberg? Are they going to bring some name back or whatever? Braun Breaker's the future, but he's not going to be, oh shit, Braun's there now, we got to watch. I don't know.
The Fiend.
Oh boy. Well, he is floating around out there in the ether somewhere, isn't he?
Hey, listen, there's a few things that WrestleMania should have ended that it didn't. Hopefully they're just waiting until the draft, like Edge and the Judgment Day. If this is what it takes to break them up, I'm all for it.
Well, and that's because then Triple H went and introduced Rhea Ripley, the new women's champion, but she came out with the Judgment Day with Dominik and Priest and Finn, and we thought since the people were leaning towards her that maybe they would break her off and and make her own entity in the Judgment Day, whatever, break up her and Dom, even though that's been so good and it's great for Dominik. She's still in the group now. You mentioned the draft. Maybe that'll change, but does she need to be the leader of this group now if she's going to be in it? She's more important than any of the other individuals in it. And the next guy is Dominik, and she fits with him. Does she need to be the one calling the shots?
If it's not her, who do you think is? Priest?
Well, originally it was Edge, and then Finn took Edge's spot, but Finn is nowhere near the leader. So I don't know. Maybe they're leaderless, rudderless.
Rhea's the one that got Dominik. I kind of think Rhea may have the argument as being the leader. She was one of the first two, her and Damian Priest with Edge. So when they turned on Edge, she was involved. So I think she is the leader.
Well, and she told everybody to rise for mommy and had all kinds of fire in this thing. And then Finn promoted Edge a little bit and the 14 staples in his head. But then when Dominik started to speak, people lost their shit. I mean, they wouldn't let him speak. They booed him out of the arena. Every time he tried to start, they got louder. They were enjoying it. And finally, he just had to yell over him. They could have been out there all night. But his story was he held back at WrestleMania so he wouldn't hurt Ray, and that's the only reason that Ray won. And he told his family to go to hell and take Bugs Bunny with them. And yeah, I couldn't hurt my father, but I held back. And then they had a bit of the VTR of what happened with the bunny, the other night. And
while they're standing there, they just go to it while they're in the middle of the promo.
To it while they're in the ring standing there. But at least they can watch the screen, I guess. But then Priest spoke Spanish and English to Bugs, to the bunny. And that's good. He's got a great voice. And then Ray's music plays. And now we just got Dom and Ray at WrestleMania, and now we're going to get a tag team match with them on opposite sides, but with Pablo Escobar and the Lucha suits with Ray and Priest with Dominik. And what I took out of this was, again, it seemed like it should be a hotter match because of the angle. It was a good match, but they didn't showcase it as anything different than any of their normal matches. But Dominik is he's coming on. His in-ring work, the promos, the look, the whole 9 yards. But they did the same thing with this one. They went to the break after a few minutes. I think it gave them a little bit more time. And then back and got some heat on Escobar, and Ray made a comeback. And they did a few zigs and zags. Zelina and Rhea Ripley got in a chase scene. And then Ray finally hit his 619 on Dominik, so the people got a pop. But Damian was legal and hit Edge with his finish 1, 2, 3. And boom, so the program rolls on. Escobar. Or not hit Edge, but hit Escobar. I saw the E and I fucking had a flashback. Hit Escobar with his finish 1, 2, 3. So it was a good match, but didn't shake the world up. What'd you think?
I don't know why. I get a kick out of Escobar as like the do-good lucha appreciator that all of a sudden was friends with Ray. This guy was in the lucha suits. He was the leader. He was all arrogant. And then when Ray was getting disrespected by Dom, he's like, you know what? This has changed me. I now want to embrace my lucha heritage.
I'm a changed man.
Yeah, I get a kick out of that. I thought it was an all right match, and it was actually the thing I enjoyed the most in the ring on the show. I'm not completely sick of it because of Dominik. And to go back to that promo, that was quite the moment. The fact that it wasn't go home heat either. It was, we want to see you get your ass kicked again heat.
Yes.
And I wonder, you are someone who probably should have lost all of his heat after the last Stampede, but you didn't because you were really good. You see that with Dominik? Like, should he have lost all of his heat after his dad beat him? But it seems like he has more now, even though he lost, and that's what it was. What do you think?
But see, that's the thing, is that the chicken shit heel, the whiny, you never get tired of seeing that guy, get his fucking shit kicked or his comeuppance. You don't want to hospitalize him. You don't want to cart him out in a bloody mess because that's pretty final. But you can beat him as long as he's annoying and weaselly and shows those qualities back on television and gets to talk. Then you can do that kind of stuff with that kind of heel. And it puts heat on him.
Do you use the draft to break up Ray and Dom on the shows?
It might be an idea, because now how do they have a graceful exit if they're just constantly nattering at each other and they're around each other? There has to be more interaction, but if one gets drafted away, then that might be a graceful way out for both of them. Do Dominik and Rhea get broken up by the draft? Is Rhea as a single more important than this, serendipitous combination they've found? I don't know. These are some interesting questions, but some of the other ones necessarily are not.
See, I hate to say it, but Balor for me is the odd man out, just because when it comes to Dominik, I like Dominik with Rhea. They're great together. I like Dominik with Priest.
Yeah.
I like that relationship, like the big badass, and just this fucking trash-talking punk.
Finn is like when they ran out of the Third Stooges and they had to fucking put Joe DeRita in. It's like,
No, those aren't good.
Anyway, Shaky Nakamura's coming back. Heard about that. And so finally in the back, Sami Zayn comes up to Jey Uso, getting ready, and they have the talk. And Jey, there's a way out. You can get out while there's time. Everything I said was going to happen's happened. The bloodline's falling apart. I'm going to beat you until you get it through your head. You don't need this. And then suddenly, you hear a big crash from off camera. And Sammy turns and runs, and the camera follows. And there is Kevin Owens trapped under an equipment case. It's laying on his leg, and the people are holding Solo back, and everybody's in chaos. And there's Jey looking with a stone face, like the case is on Owens, and Sammy's verklempt, and Solo's being drug out. And this look,
Heyman in the background, like creeping around.
Yeah. Did this look stagey as fuck to you, or was it just me?
It was a bit ridiculous that these two are standing. Again, if we're suspending the disbelief of the camera being right in front of Jey Uso and Sammy when they're having this big private conversation, that it goes from them having this private, well-lit, mood-lit conversation to all of a sudden the crash and everyone runs over there, and then it was like Clue. Like all the players are in the room and everyone's in a weird position. I mean, again, a lot of this stuff works because of how good everything with the bloodline has been, but maybe because it just seems so ridiculous that Sammy would need to seek out Jey to have this conversation after everything. And again, Jey was the one that didn't accept him, and then he finally did. And now they have this relationship. It made it all seem a little... Again, everything this week felt off coming off WrestleMania, including all this stuff. To me.
Well, anyway, I feel the same way, and we were up to time for the main event, and Sammy's last words before he went out, he tells everybody Owens is in the medical room. He won't be coming out. He's not available tonight. Basically. So it's going to be Sammy and Jey, and Sammy's all by himself. And that they start the main event. They do a couple of spots. Sammy milks like he's going to run for a dive, and here comes Solo down the entranceway, walking down, and he stops and stares at him, and they go to the break. And when they came back, they were already well into the match, and they were fighting on the top rope, and nothing wrong with the match that we saw. We didn't see a lot of it, I guess, but they went back and forth. They hit some 2 counts. And finally, again, as soon as they're fighting on the top rope again and Sammy gets headbutted, goes down to the apron, the referee takes Jimmy away to do something, and Solo hits the spike behind the referee's back, thumb to the throat, and then Jey... Somehow, Sammy can take the spike to the throat, but then get up and run and hit the ropes to be drop-kicked. And he wins with a drop kick, 1, 2, 3. So it was an okay match with a, to put it kindly, less than creative finish. And then Solo gets on Sammy and starts beating him up and goes to give him the spike, but Jey stops Solo. And they have the face-off. And I think I've seen this before, haven't we? But this time, Jey super kicks Sammy and says, get a chair. And they're going to do whatever with the chair, and then Riddle music plays.
Oh.
And that's why I wrote, oh no, him in this. And Riddle comes in the ring and makes an awkward comeback and knocks the heels out of the ring, and they all powder. So now is it the baby faces instead of Cody, Owens, Zayn, and Brock? We get Cody, Owens, Zayn, and Riddle?
You talked earlier about people that were on both shows. This guy's on both shows this week. I thought at least this would be a Riddle-free zone over here. He's returned. They like him a whole lot more than I do. I think he's had now 2, so he's 1 scandal away from 3 strikes, and you're out of nothing. It's wrestling, actually.
Whatever is it, 3 failures of the drug test or 3 scandals?
As soon as I heard bro, I said no, and I couldn't believe it.
Bro, no. So yeah.
This is going to be what takes me out of the bloodline for the next 6 months. Riddle's involvement.
I don't know what else to say. Well, that was SmackDown.